What's up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom and become the rock star in your market. That's exactly what we're talking about today. We've got the boss, Hoss Pratt, is on with us, and we're talking all about how to become the listing boss, how to develop a top producer mindset. We're also going to talk about your listing consultation, your digital presentations, making sure that you actually have the tools, the techniques, the marketing strategies in place to become a top listing agent in your market, because that's where the money is at. So unfortunately, my illustrious colleague, Greg, is not here with us. I think he's actually at an event, a big speaking event, watching Tony Robbins and stuff like that in Salt Lake City. So make sure to reach out to him on Facebook and tell him that you're very insulted that he didn't bother to show up for this. So with that, let's bring in Hoss. How's it going today?
Hey, what's going on, Matt? I'm well, buddy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, man. So we're talking before we got on and we jumped on live. There was a question that I noticed that I wanted to bring to you, because I know a little bit about your background. For anybody that doesn't know who you are, I will just briefly mention, then I'll let you tell people a little bit more. But so I encountered Hoss. And Hoss has done the show before. You may have also seen our episodes on the Level Up podcast with Greg Harrelson. Those are awesome, and you need to go check those out. But I encountered Hoss, 2006, 2007. I came across, I was part of a real estate coaching, marketing program. And one of the bonuses in that program was an interview with Hoss about how he was listing and selling. I think it was at that point 100 plus properties a year. Your main systems were FSBOs and expireds. I think I wore that CD out. Listening to that as well as the other materials in that, and that's where I really learned the scripting and stuff like that. That's what gave me a really good head start. And then since then, you've gone on to get into coaching. You've started a lot of stuff, and of course, you've got your Listing Boss book now. But give people kind of an idea of just what you do now, and then we'll kind of go back a little bit and talk about where you come from.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know what CD that was. It's always fun listening to those interviews. I always enjoy them. But no, today I coach and train agents, entrepreneurs, brokers around the country, and teach them and equip them on how to build better businesses. Work with them on on not only the system side of it, but growth. We call it growing to the next level. So what we really specialize in is doubling an agent's business and being able to provide them with every system that they need at every level. If they're trying to go from even a new agent to 5 million, we got the tools and systems to help them do it. Or from 5 to 10 million in volume, we got it. From 10 to 20 at every level. And people, what people love about our organization and our coaching is that the company is called Success Systems, and I'm a systems thinker. I'm a systems processor, and so people love systems that work, that are step by step, and so that's what they get with us. We don't just say, hey, go after here and go do that. We say, hey, here's the tools, here's the marketing material, here's the letters, here's what you say, here's how you say it, here's the reason why. When you get here, then you're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and they're able to just suspend all their disbelief and follow a path of success without knowing all, without having to know all the answers, right? They're following a system. It's a model of success. And that's what we do, is we provide models for agents to grow their businesses.
Yeah, and the reason that I love that so much is I see people at a lot of levels of success doing this. Now, obviously, people that are less successful tend to do this than the more successful, but there's definitely a tendency, and it's easy to slip into this sometimes, where you start off what you're doing, whether it's your day or your approach to a certain type of lead or whatever the case is, but it's very easy to fall into this where you kind of start with a blank sheet of paper. And you're like, you just approach it as if not only is there no system, but nobody else has ever solved this problem before, so I'm not even going to look. You just kind of start with a complete blank sheet of paper, and I see people doing it on a daily basis. I see people doing it when they decide to go after a certain type of lead. I'm sure if you keep your eye on the Facebook groups at all, you tend to notice a lot of the same questions, and it's like people don't realize that the problems have, for the most part, already been solved. There's already models, there's already systems and tools out there to pretty much solve almost any problem you have as an agent. And I love the fact that it's not just about coaching and telling people what to do. It's about really deeply thinking about what needs to be done, putting it into a step-by-step system that they can actually execute on. Because you're right. I mean, suspending your disbelief is such an important part of actually getting into action. And we'll talk about that in a second. But there was a really good question, speaking of the Facebook groups. Victor Tay Jr. Just kind of put a question in the group, and it was, how long did it take to finally get your business off the ground once you went full-time in real estate? So Hoss, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share your perspective on it, because I know that a lot of people probably believe, dude, Hoss is this awesome coach and he's got all these systems and he's done all this stuff. Like, I can't relate to that. Like, he probably hit the ground running and took 10 listings
Right.
the first month. You know what I'm saying? And I know that's not the case. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
I mean, I barely made it through high school. So for all of those that are thinking that you can't be me, and I have all these tools, and but you're any different than me. That's the devil trying to talk you out of following your purpose. That's not true at all.
Napoleon Hill reference. I love it.
Right. So go back and study the basics. No, I think for me, like I really truly did. Right. So like I started from nothing. I barely made it through high school. But I was fortunate enough at a young age to have a mentor that took me under his wing, and he taught me what I needed to learn. Kind of like in real estate school, you go to real estate school, and then you get out of real estate school, and then you don't apply or don't learn. You don't need anything you learned from real estate school, right? You don't use the words chattel and fee simple in the real world of real estate, right? So you got to learn marketing and lead generation, otherwise you're going to go broke, right? So It's the same deal. He taught me street smarts, and write that word down. The words street smarts. I think. For that, that's what it takes. It takes the smarts that you learn in the streets to succeed long term at a high level. That's one thing that anybody that I've ever learned from. That's one skill set that they have. They're street smart, and so and that only comes from learning how to put yourself in difficult situations and places that you got to learn and adapt. So. I know when I first got into real estate, I'll take you back quickly. Some of you guys may have known my story, so I won't bore you with it. But one of the pieces of advice he told me, Jimbo was his name, and Jimbo gave me 3 pieces of advice. First piece of advice was you got to start a business, Hoss. Profits are better than wages. You need to have your own business. And so I started Pratt Lawns in high school. It's still in business today. I sold that business to my brother. He still runs it. And then I was crushing it, man, like in high school, like crushing it, making 6 figures mowing grass, and here's what happened though. I started that. This is honest to God. This is how it happened. I grabbed the phone book, white pages of a phone book in St. Joe, Missouri, and I start calling line by line in the white pages, and I just start calling and I offer them an estimate on their spring lawn care. And here's what happened, Matt. I learned that you can do it. At a young age, I learned that phone right there leads to money. That phone right there leads to opportunity, and it never, ever, 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 not a single day has ever let me down to do that. And so, from my experience, the money's always on the other end of that phone, and it still is today. For those of you that don't think it does, it does. It's where that's the golden key. And so, I built Pratt Lawns, and I sold it. Second piece of advice was, he said, now you got to sell it and move. I said, why? He goes, because you can make $100,000 a year here. You can make $1 million a year somewhere else. He later on told me what he was trying to do was he knew he had to change my environment so I could grow. And I was growing up in North. Matt, you're in Nebraska right now. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole different mentality up there, right? Not taking anything away. It's just different than when you go to San Diego, right? And you have to don't you, dude? I know what you do. When you land in Nebraska, you got to don't tone it down, don't you? You're like, okay, I'm in Nebraska. I need to slow down how I talk. About.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. I need to less ambitious. Now we're in the Midwest. That's kind of how it felt. So I had to go to the place where money flows. To me, that's in Dallas, and so where energy is, and people making things happen. And so I got into real estate, and I failed miserably when I first started. So it was miserable. I blew $50,000. I didn't list any homes, and for 6 months, and but I turned everything around overnight. So literally went from no business to listing 30 homes a month, going after the haven't met market. And that's how I started. And so, all that was from, just learning it in the trenches.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and I think that's something that people definitely need to hear. And if they've heard your story before, it's always a good refresher just to remember that, even for someone like you had, massive success in another area, another business, and you were good at prospecting. Obviously, you don't build a 6-figure lawn mowing business by not being able to talk to people and close sales. And it
Right.
still didn't quite translate over into real estate in the sense that you hit the ground running and you're all of a sudden taking listings. There were skills that needed to be developed and a mindset that needed to be developed. But I want to talk a little bit. We've talked about the skills and things like that on the episodes with Greg Harrelson, so I don't necessarily want to retread some of the stuff that we've talked about. But just real quickly, kind of give people an idea, what were some of those skills that personally unlocked it for you that all of a sudden 6 months later it starts to click and you're taking listings?
Yeah, sales skills number one, y'all. Sales, sales, sales. You got to be able to sell. You got to be able to freely and openly communicate about the game of real estate and be able to talk about what you do to provide value, how you solve problems, and be able to communicate it and have your talking points, have your messaging. You got to have that dialed in. That's number one. It's sales. My dad always told me, he goes, Hoss, if you could sell, you'll never be broke. You got to be able to sell, communicate, and I'd say sales translates into communication. Right? So It's not just being able to sell something. It's about being able to articulate, communicate, and drive your message, right? And through asking questions with confidence. And so those are the skills. And then that'll take you to 250 to 300,000 a year. You can make that. And then the next skill you learn is marketing. And then you go learn marketing. And then marketing will take you to 500 to 700,000. And then the next skill would be team building, which will take you over $1 million. And that's for me were the three skills I built. It's funny. I'll give you a quick story. This is a great story because it just happened to me. I was driving to my lake house on Friday, and I was listening to my mentor, Dan Kennedy. You know Dan Kennedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't know Dan Kennedy, y'all, you got to check out Dan Kennedy. You guys amazing.
Go read a book. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Go read a book.
So, by the way, remind me to tell you a story about my Uber driver and Dan Kennedy, but keep going.
That's a great story, like the Uber driver and Dan Kennedy. Wow, I can't wait to hear it. So, Dan Kennedy, who was my marketing mentor, I competed in the Marketer of the Year competition, with their organization. And so I was driving to my lake house and I bought something. Here's why I bought something, because I invest in myself always. I always buy stuff. I always buy books, CDs, tapes, and then I listen to it. I literally bought my lake house for the reason it's an hour and 20 minutes from my door, so I could steal my family's ears for an hour and 20 minutes every week, every Friday, right? So I'm intentional with what I listen to on the way from here to there. And it's literally went to the decision making of that, so I could get into my ears. So what do we listen to? Dan Kennedy. Why? Because every 5-year-old needs to know how to market like Dan Kennedy. So
yeah, they do.
Right. So we're listening to him, and literally Matt, and he goes, just like Hoss Pratt from Dallas, Texas, who built and he went on to tell him my whole story, right? And my daughter goes, he just said Hoss Pratt. I'm like, he did, and we listened to it, and for 30 minutes he went on and told my story from when I started, from when I got into the coaching and training business to today, and I had that epiphany. I said, I'm listening to someone tell my success story, but I'm still learning from them, right? So I'm still learning from them, but they're telling my success story. And I remember telling my wife, I said, that skill of marketing is the one skill set that was, the most effective for me, was to be, being able to market, being able to get my phone to ring, being able to do those things. That was a big skill set to build. I remember that whole year. I spent a whole year learning marketing. That was it.
Yeah. Well, and then so that what would you call it? Just the three steps, the 3 buckets, whatever. But that even hits home for me and reminds me that there's certain, like, I need to build more sales skills just for me. Like, I built that marketing piece, but you're right. There's a progression where you have to master the ability to look somebody in the eye and sell them something one-on-one before you start working on generating a ton of leads and before you start working on building a whole team and all this stuff. And I think people get ahead of ourselves, and me included sometimes, by focusing sometimes on what we see other people doing, forgetting they've already mastered a certain skill set, and you have to go through that same progression and master that same skill set to get to where they're at.
You know what I see today? This is what I see today. We talked about it briefly before. I see too much noise. I see too many people trying to do it all. And, I think the world of Facebook and, here we are, we're live streaming in Facebook now, right? But they try to do it all, and they underestimate what doing it all means, right? The progression of going from the realtor to the coach to the CEO to the organization, it was, I know, to me, it's like at every level I had to learn something. I mean, every level. And so my advice to, to most anybody is turn down the noise and do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because those skill sets are bred in doing the work. I want to give you an example of what I mean by sales. I always had the ability to talk to neighbors. I'm writing a book. You can see it right here. It's called Easy Money. It's my next book. It's already, it's nearly done, but I'm not going to release it probably for another year and a half. But it's Mastering the Art of Sales and Persuasion. I call it Easy Money because my neighbor, when I grew up in Missouri, there's your phone. Right. So like whenever I would in Missouri, I would, in the summers or winters or whatever, I scooped snow, I mowed grass, I sold things. I was in FFA, I was in 4-H. So I was always selling something, always doing that. Right. And my neighbor across the street, his name was Jack Buller. He named me Easy Money because I would always knock on his door, and he would always be selling something. He'd say, "What you got there, Easy Money?" And so I'm writing this book, right? And I'm writing this book, and one of the biggest distinctions for me on these skill sets that were the most valuable for me to learn in sales and presentation is the ability to sell from doing one-to-one, right? So let's say it starts with the phone, right? You got to be able to set an appointment, to being able to talk and articulate, get them to get in front of them. Once you're in front of them, now it's one-on-one sales, nose to nose, toes to toes, belly to belly. It's one-on-one sales, and that's one set of skill sets. Then you step into one to a few, where you have between 2 and 5 people that you have to present to. Like on a listing presentation, you're on a couple, you're presenting with a couple. It's an entirely different thing. Now we have 2 people, right? Different skill set. Being able to keep this person engaged and keeping them trucking, and with their emotions not getting involved, and I mastered that skill. I know for me, I remember going through that. Like, this is a skill that I've got to learn. And then the third skill, right, was one-to-many, where it's one-way communication. That's the skill that pays a lot of money. When you master the skill to be able to communicate one-to-many in one-way communication, you're there. Being able to talk to 10 people or 100 people or 10,000 people and be able to keep them engaged, be able to keep them going. Like, I'm referring to speaking and training, right? I mean, that's for me, that's what I do. But like, I've done thousands of seminars, but it's one-way communication where I got to talk for an hour and a half. I'm the only one talking to all these people, and I got to leave them make a difference. And that was a different skill set. So one-on-one, one to a few, one to many. And everybody can improve at all these levels, right? I mean, I know I can improve on one-on-one, I can improve on one to a few, and I could definitely improve on one to many. And in fact, that's what I bought from my mentor, was a presentation on how to learn how to master the skill of presenting one to many. Because it's a skill that I truly want to master. And I've devoted my craft and my life to it. So,
that's really good. It is, and it's cool because there's always so much to learn and stuff like that. But I wanted to dive into that just real briefly here. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is that you mentioned turning down the noise and doing the work.
Right.
And it's not just in the sense of doing the work of the business. And guys, just want to quickly thank everybody that's watching here. Mike LaFido, Andy Shear, Michael Higdon, what is up? Great agent out of Louisville. Guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And let us know if you have comments or questions, put them down here. But so I've been thinking about, when most people think of like personal development or even business development, they think they're doing skill building. Most of the time, what they're actually doing is learning. They are acquiring new information, new tips, new tricks, new techniques, new tactics, right? And I love what you say about turning down that noise, because that too much of a good thing in that case definitely and absolutely is a bad thing, right? So most people think of self-development and they're always acquiring knowledge and things like that, but are they really doing the work that ends up building the skill? Because it's the skill that ends up actually paying the bills.
In coaching and training, most don't. This book right here, I wrote it. I poured my heart and soul into this thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? And it was written for realtors to dominate their niches, grow their business. Like, not many books were written for realtors like that. You know what I mean? Like, you could go get, the books that Think and Grow Rich and apply it to real estate, or 7 Habits of Highly Effective, right? But like, as far as book written on for real estate, and the amount of people that will actually read the book, that buy the book, is just astonishing to me. And I just, if I could figure out a way to get all the information in here into their head without them reading it, but literally, like less than 10% of people will read this book.
Yeah.
So be the one who reads the book, be the one who studies, be the one who, who's always growing. And I feel like, so many people, like, it's so refreshing. One of the most refreshing things for me, Matt, is whenever I meet somebody that's old, that is older, right? And they're, and they're learning based, and they have an enthusiasm about learning. I love the older people and seeing that, where they have an enthusiasm for learning. How refreshing.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very much so. And I plan to be that person. But I was about to, when you were saying old, if I was about to, I was thinking you were going to go with like 30s or 40s, in which case I would just dive out there. Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to dive out there.
Be careful saying old. It's,
So Michael Higdon has a good comment. He says, I'm ordering the book now, lawsuit if it doesn't work. Which I know he's joking, so I know Michael. But
how about you do this? Go to listingbossbook.com. Everybody that's listening, and then I'll give it to you. I won't charge you for my end of the book. You just pay the shipping and handling, and it's $7.95. I'll ship it to you, and you can get it there. And then if you don't like it, let me know, and I'll refund your money. How's that?
Love it.
It's a good fire starter too, man. If you ever want to use a good fire starter, listen.
Oh, come on now. Whatever. So I'm curious, like in those. The months where things were just not clicking versus the months where you're starting to roll along and all of a sudden you're taking listings and listings are closing and just starts to pick up. And I think you did something like 7 million in volume your first year, even though you didn't take anything in like the first 6 months. So the numbers are ridiculous.
Right.
I'm curious, like, take me back to that turning point. Was there anything different that shifted in your mentality prior to things taking off, or was it a skill issue where the skill building started to pay off and the mindset came as a byproduct of that? I'm curious which came first.
I didn't discover FSBOs until 6 months into the business. To be honest, that's what happened. So like my first 6 months, my skill set, this is the blind spot. I should have known that. I should have known that my strength was prospecting. I already built a business doing it. Right. So at that time, but I didn't. Why? Because I just did. I don't know. So like I should have started with, the FSBOs, and I should have gone after that market 6 months in, but coulda, woulda, shoulda, who cares? I did it. So 6 months in, I was talking with a gentleman, and I'm driving around in my F-350 truck, and I pull in actually the real estate office. It's my real estate office, and I'm in my early 20s at the time, and I pull in there, and the guy, there's this guy that had all these wrapped Hummers, and he is a new agent in our office, and I go to my broker, and I said, broker, who is this guy that has his picture all over these Hummers? Like, what is this? It looked like a circus, man. It was like crazy. Like, he had like, remember the gigantic Hummers, and they're all wrapped. I never, that was when wrapped was like a new thing, right? You remember when you first saw a wrapped something, right? It was like blown away. Well, there's 5 of these things, and I go to my broker, and she goes, that's Michael Reese. He's your age. And I go, what do you mean? And you know Mike Reese, right? And he's one of my best friends. He's a real estate, but he's, been around a long time in the real estate. But it's funny, that's how we started. That's how we met. And he goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm driving around looking for FSBOs. And he said, well, why are you driving around looking for FSBOs? Don't you know that there's services that send those leads to you? And I go, no, who? And he goes, Warnock's. And I go, Warnock's? And he goes, yeah, they'll send you the leads every day. And so I rushed to my 1-bedroom apartment, and I buy Warnock's, and the next day I had a sign in the ground. And the next day I had another, and it never stopped. And and that's, so like I found what worked for me.
So it's like the correct application of skills to the right lead source. Yeah, the right niche.
Huge. That's a huge one, right? Yeah. Where I coach people now, Matt, like we coach people, we have an inner circle program that we have tons of people that are involved in. And one of the things that we do is we want to know what their strengths are, what their DISC personality reads, so we know where to apply that strength. Like, for example, if somebody's a low D, high I, the last place I'm going to send them is to go start on expireds.
Yep. Yep.
Right. I mean, they would hate me. I mean, it would be the worst
Yes, they
experience
would.
in the world.
And their life.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be horrible. So that's an important thing, and I think that's a distinction for all the listeners. You know, that may sound easy, but honestly, y'all, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know it, and you don't know this
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not that easy.
No, in fact, we're going to have somebody on the show, Phil Simonetta, he's from the East Coast. I think he's in Miami. But I came across him, and he's not the only one to do this, but I think he's the first one that'll be on our show that'll really share this, but how to look at your personality profile and match that up to the prospecting method that's most likely to fit it. Now, granted, there's other factors, there's values and stuff like that play a big part, but for the most part, you can go right down the line, DISC, and you can start matching up the prospecting method or the niche that you go after with your personality. And guys, if you're watching this, the average person in the US is a high SC. They're an admin person. They're an engineer type of mindset. They're cautious. They want to be in a stable environment. And if that's you and you're in real estate, you have to find a prospecting method and a niche that suits you. And it may not be expireds, and that's okay. But the sales skills that go into looking somebody in the eye and being able to persuade them to list their home with you, a lot of those things are universal.
Right. Right. And that's an important thing. So, like, you know, and every niche has, you know, there's tons of niches, right? I mean, tons of niches. So, you know, definitely find a niche, and it doesn't take that many niches. You know, we talked about this before, with, you know, on your podcast, like with Greg. Like, you look at my business and his business, we literally dominated like 2 niches, right? Like both of us, like we both dominated like FSBOs, expireds, repeat referral, sphere, so like 2-3 niches.
Yeah, but most of the time they came into you first by being a FSBO or expired and became a sphere later. You know, it was still most of the time came down to just a couple of things.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody, so I had to start with, you know, in a market where, and that's why I had to learn marketing, because I was in my early 20s and I was in Texas, and you know, they like, you know, I'd set an appointment, and then they'd be like, "Your name's Hoss, and you're in Texas." I'd show up, and I looked like I was a 16-year-old kid. You know, I had to overcome it. That's why I learned how to sell like a madman. Was because I was always young. I was always young. Even when I did seminars, I was 26, traveling the country doing seminars. And I remember I'd be in California or Boston, or, you know, they'd be, you know, there'd always be one in every audience that would show up, be like, "What's this guy going to teach us?" Right? And me having to learn how to control that environment. And, you know, and I remember at a young age, I always wanted to look older. And so I would always let my scruff grow out a little bit, and I would never shave. And I would always use clippers because I'd always want a little scruff. Made me look like 3 years older. Now it's the opposite. Now I'm like shaving for my baby face. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, right. I'm still in the phase where I can get away with the scruff, but I figure in about 5 years it might be going out of style. I can shave, and I'll shave like 5 years.
That's why you're doing it, Matt. You just want to look older, right? You got the baby face.
Pretty much.
That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, yeah. I was just gonna make a comment that we missed it by a few years where the scruff thing was cool. If that would have been the case when I was like 20, it would have been a lot easier.
Right.
But anyway, so Dwayne Murphy comments, says, "Great book, ordering one for everyone in my company," which is awesome. Dwayne, we appreciate that. So
Dwayne, awesome, man. Good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So let's keep going on the sales skills part of it, and then maybe we'll dive into the marketing before we close things out. But I wanted to get a little bit into the actual consultation side. So let's say someone finds their niche, they start making those contacts, they have the conversations, and they get the opportunity. So let's go into some tips for how Hoss Pratt runs his listing consultation back in the day, and what you recommend to agents.
Right. So in my book, I have a chapter on listing presentation. So if you guys want my listing presentation, it's in there, and it's the 4-step listing presentation. It's rapport, review, results, and reality is the framework. I believe this, Matt. I'm not a dog and pony show presenter, meaning, dude, if I show up just like this on a listing, I'm most comfortable. All I need is this, right? What is this? Pricing stuff, maybe a couple visual aids, but like this is how I'm most comfortable. So like, and again, and I tried to like put on a whole production thing but my conversion went down. So I believe this, however you are most comfortable, the way that you present is how you should present. So if you're more comfortable following a PowerPoint presentation because it keeps you on track, and that's how you're able to be fully more confident and more present and able to present better, then do it. If you're more comfortable like just winging it and just like that and just showing up, then do it. I give you permission to do that, because sometimes we're stronger one way, but we think it needs to be another way, right? So that it really comes down to a framework is what you need. You need a framework. It doesn't matter how it looks. It matters that it's the same. So, for example, my listing presentation, the first thing I do is step one is rapport, where the first part is I walk in the door, I'm looking for conversation starters, I set my things down at the kitchen table, I say, who wants to give me the grand tour? They give me the grand tour, they're showing me around, I'm looking for conversation starters the whole time. I'm focused on family, occupation, recreation, dreams. If you nail down the first part of rapport, you could fail at everything else, and you'll still get the listing, because rapport trumps everything. I learned that on my first listing presentation. I show up. It was first one ever. Was a referral from my insurance agent. I'll never forget it. I show up. I'm sitting there praying, God, please let this be a lay down listing. Let me get this. I don't know what I'm doing. I hope to God he doesn't ask me what's on that seller disclosure notice, because I don't know what any of that stuff is. Right? Me thinking all that. Right? Yeah. I mean, it was. I didn't. I mean, it was just thrown to the wolves. And I go there and I see I sit down. He goes, go ahead and have a seat. And I sit down and I see a coaster on his coffee table of a Missouri Tiger, right? And I'm in Texas, so I'm like, got it, right?
Yeah, you got it.
It'd be no different, right? They saw, Nebraska Cornhusker, you like, done, bingo, we got it.
Done, exactly.
And so, and so I learned on that appointment, my very first one that I got, that rapport trumps everything. Like he literally, I didn't have to do anything, no presentation. He told me what where he wanted to be, and I showed him some numbers. We agreed, and that was it, right? So you want to master the skill of being able to find common ground with anyone. And finding common ground is building rapport, right? I mean, for example, I have a skill now. I can find common ground with anybody. My wife says that all the time. If I just went on took my family on a Disney cruise, I'm standing in every aisle. I'm talking to the person around me, right?
Right.
And here's how I do it. I talk, because I've been everywhere, and so if they're like, hey, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm like, hey, you ever ate at Cindy's down there on Main Street? You're like, oh my God, right? Like, so. Right, so like it's easy for me because my experience of traveling, I can find that common ground. But that's a biggie for any agent to be intentional on every listing at the very beginning. Do nothing, don't worry about anything but finding common ground and building rapport, and just asking the right questions, and don't worry about the rest. 2 is review. Then that's when you toured the home. You're sitting down at the kitchen table. You're reviewing their steps, meaning their situation. I used to use a thing called a seller discovery sheet. Here it is right here. It's a seller discovery sheet that I would fill out and have filled out before I went on every appointment. And so the rapport the review was me reviewing their situation. All right, so I see that you want to get this property sold the next month. You're moving to Seattle. You're down trying to, your kid just graduated. You're doing this. You owe this. You sold a home. Like I'm going over the, this is the goal. This is what you want to do. And then step 3, after I review the situation, is I talk about results, which is where I talk about my marketing. All right, so now we know your situation. Let me show you what I can do to help you achieve that goal. Let me show you what I'm going to do to help you get to Seattle in 60 days. I'm going to show you my 89, and I get into my marketing plan, right? And I always say it like this. I've got an 89-point marketing plan that works magic in selling homes like yours the fastest, most amount of money. I'm not going to sit here and go through all 89 things. Otherwise, I'd be here till the sun comes up in the morning. But I am going to go over the top 5 things that make the biggest difference, that are going to put the most money in your pocket, and that are going to get this property sold the fastest. Does that sound good? Yeah. What I do, I just gave him permission. I'm just going to cover 5 things. I have 89. Don't ask about those things. We're going to talk about this. You follow me? And that plan has to happen. So if you don't have a plan and you just go through the 5 things, you're going to go, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, are you going to do this? You follow? So having a plan, and that's where you would communicate it. And then lastly, the last part after I communicate my marketing is reality, which is pricing, and go over pricing. And I end with that. I ask for their commitment if we could agree on all the price terms and conditions. And that's my presentation. It's more of a framework. I give myself some wiggle room within that framework, but the framework is the framework, and I don't veer don't veer from it. Now, I don't know, if that's what you're, as far as listing presentation, but I think that's what most people need, is they need their own framework. It's no different than speaking, right? Like having a framework when you speak,
Yeah.
having the note, right? Like you do these things, it's important to have a framework that you follow, and it's no different on the listing presentation. And it's not a rehearsal. It's you worked real hard to be at that kitchen table, and you need to get the listing.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. And then we got a question that I want to get to, but yeah, the understanding like the rapport part, going back to that for a second, just how important that is. There was a really interesting guest that we had on our show, I think it was last year, and he runs a show in San Diego where they pit 3 listing agents with a real seller week after week. So he's basically had a chance to film more listing appointments than most of us will ever see, especially from some of the top agents in San Diego, right? So he's kind of culled the data from all this and all the observations and the testing and yada yada. What he found was that one of the things that will sink you the fastest as a listing agent is saying something negative about the home before the paperwork is signed.
Right.
So even going into like some of the repairs that you'd recommend that they make, isn't that interesting?
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. Right. Which when you think about it in terms of rapport beats everything, that 100%, like you wouldn't think about that. We would think, oh, like we go in as a consultant, we're helping, like my intention is to help them put the home in the best position to sell. We think we're helping our cause by demonstrating our value in terms of what we know about what buyers are looking for. And that's all fine and good, but rapport trumps everything. Rapport trumps everything.
Right.
They
may not necessarily even care to know all that, right? They just want to know that, they may not. They just want to have the warm and fuzzies that you're the person to get the job done. Rapport does trump everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just find common ground, and you can make all the mistakes in the world, but if you've built enough rapport, they'll forgive you for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I love the part about the marketing, the marketing portion of that. Even if they don't let you get to it, or even if you don't feel like you have the most unique thing in the world, just telling them that you have a system and telling them, hey, we'll just cover a couple of points of that, but I've got the whole thing and you've got it on paper there. They may never ever look at that, but that gives them, it's just that psychological trigger of the checkbox of, okay, credible, check. Right? They know what they're doing. Check. All right, moving on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't always have to be anything super special, and you don't have to have all the latest things that a salesperson will try to sell you on, that you need this to get your next listing, or this is going to help you get the next listing. Like, Hoss, how many things on that 89-point marketing plan are something that was sold to you as an agent as, well, if you just get one deal, this will pay for your
right.
subscription for the entire year.
Right. The problem is you have a bunch of those deals. You have a whole lot of deals to pay for all of them, right? Yeah, no, it's true. And the other thing I would add to that on the presentation is obviously, the important things are confidence and enthusiasm on a presentation like that. And being able to show up that, to be able to present with confidence is just everything. Being able to be prepared. You don't need to say everything. You just need to be able to, you say what's important, right? So like, I say that just because a lot of people try to fit too much into an appointment, and it may lead to more questions. Always remember, the confused mind doesn't buy. And so if your presentation leaves them more confused than less confused, then you're not going to get conversion. So some of you may do good just to simplify that presentation, dummy it down a little bit. They don't need to know every single moving part. Here's my rule. I don't go on a listing presentation and compete against marketing against the judge who knows nothing about marketing. You follow? So I'm not going to show up
100%.
Like this seller, they're an engineer. They don't know marketing and what sells homes the fastest, most amount of money. I'm the authority at that. I'm the one in charge, right? You see that right there is what a seller wants. They want that confidence of somebody that's, is the expert, not show up there and just compete on marketing against a judge who knows nothing about marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100% agree.
Right.
So the question that I wanted to get to was Michael Higdon asked just for you to share a little bit on your pre-qualification process, just to give us a sense of how you would decide whether to go on that appointment. Good
question, Michael. Good job, man. I love that question. So, and And yeah, you guys, I see this here, so good. Keep asking. That's a good question. And so the pre-qualifying question is this. Every appointment I went on, I would ask the question. All right, great. So good. I'm looking forward to seeing you Thursday at 7:30. Now, before I let you go, Matt, let me ask you this question. If I come out there Thursday at 7:30, we sit down, you love everything about me, you love my 89-point marketing plan, you know, we agree on price, terms, and conditions, is there any reason that I can't earn your business at that appointment? Right? Or is there any reason I wouldn't be able to earn your business at that appointment? And they say, well, no. I mean, not if I love everything about you, then perfect, great. See you Thursday at 7:30, right? But I asked that qualifying question. Here's why. Because at that appointment, when he goes, okay, well, good. Well, thanks, Hoss, for coming out tonight, and we'll call you back tomorrow. We'll let you know what we decide. Well, wait a minute, Matt. Remember on the phone, whenever before I came out here, I said, if I come out here and you love everything about me and you love my marketing plan, you said you believe we get the property sold. We agree on price, terms, and conditions. So what is it that you're looking for in an agent that we didn't discuss tonight?
That's a really good question.
Right. So
yeah.
I'm going to make them tell me no twice. I'll give you a funny story. I remember one time, and sometimes I tell people in selling, you got to be comfortable in the moments that everybody around you is uncomfortable. And I'll tell you the story, and everybody around me was uncomfortable, but I had to remain comfortable. And so I was with this newlywed family, and they wanted to sell their home, and he told me that, and I said that, right? And he goes, well, I just want we just want to think about it, and here's what I told him. I said, look, the reason I ask that question is because I don't do two-step appointments. I only do one-step appointments. You know, we come to these appointments with the intention of putting the sign on the ground to list the home. My team's, waiting for me to come home with this paperwork signed so they can begin marketing the home. So I'm not going to come back. This is your opportunity to decide if this is if I'm the agent that you want to use to get this property sold. You know I can do it. There's not another agent you're going to talk to that can get this property sold like we can. So I'm going to let you and your wife talk about it. I'm going to go out to my truck. I'm going to sit down. You guys come out there and let me know what y'all decide. Does that sound good? Yeah. And then I sit out there. I go out there. I lay my tailgate down, and I just sit on the tailgate, just sitting there waiting. Right? And they come out there, and they're probably like looking through the blinds going, will you go tell that lunatic? No, I'm not going to, honey. Okay, let's just do it, right? I don't know. But like, and they came out there and they said yes, and then the next day I had an offer for their house. I sold it. Long story short, though, there's a lot of those opportunities that are missed because you failed to apply the right pressure at the right time. But most of the time, that seller that says, I'm going to call you tomorrow isn't going to call you tomorrow. And so leave. It depends who you're going after. If that's a referral, I would never do that. But guess what? It was an expired. Their phone was ringing off the hook with other agents, right?
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't going to get it there, I was never going to get it, and I knew it. And so being able to apply that pressure is what they needed in order to make that decision, and it turned out to be a good one.
Yeah, man, that's really good. It's funny because my mom works at a big insurance company. She was describing some of the issues that they were having in a certain department. And when it really gets down to it, I realized that essentially they didn't want to have a couple of uncomfortable conversations with one person.
Right.
They would rather pay her, 50, 60, 70 grand a year to literally sit there and obstruct the work of other people, because they don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation with one person. And unfortunately, if we take that mentality into sales, we're not sheltered by the corporate structure. There's no hierarchy. There's no guaranteed paychecks. There's no paid vacations. Like you feel it immediately in your commission checks, the ability to not have uncomfortable conversations. So I love that you pointed that out, because that is a skill, that being uncomfortable. Making people uncomfortable by asking them tough questions that they really do need to face, and then being comfortable in that moment with them being uncomfortable, that is a skill. It's a muscle that can be built, and the better you build it, the more uncomfortable conversations you can have, the more successful you'll be.
Amen. That's right.
Yeah, that's really good.
But because here's why. There's two types of pressure. There's internal pressure and there's external pressure. I'm not a pushy salesperson. That's not my style. Now, some would say, well, that was a little pushy. I'd agree too. I was a little pushy, but they needed it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, if I wasn't going to push them to that, then, I wasn't going to get it anyway. And I knew I could get the home sold. So, I wanted to help them out. So, but you got to be able to apply that type of pressure for people to make those decisions, because, they're not only going to be talking to you, they have other choices. And so whenever you have an opportunity, you must seize that opportunity. And don't be lazy in that, right? Be intentional about that. Seize every opportunity. You know, and and then they came out and got me, and guess what I asked for? I asked for more. I asked for referrals. I dug deeper. I wanted more. Why? Because I seize every opportunity. That's the time you ask for. You follow, like, and you go for it. Why? Because this is the opportunity right here, right now. And you know, and that is a muscle too, right? Being able to always look for those opportunities.
Yeah, I like it. Well, let's finish up with just reminding people of where they can get the book, the best place to get the book.
Listingbossbook.com is the cheapest, best place to buy it. And you can go to Amazon and buy it. You can go to Amazon and read the reviews. We've got like 36 5-star reviews on it. You can go read what other people had to say about it if you are on the fence. But go to listingbossbook.com. Go there and get it and read it. Read it and study it and apply it. Like, I didn't, you know, Matt, and you've read the book, but like, you're looking for a model that, you know, there's a lot of meat packed into it. It's not just a book about theory. It's things that you can implement. Like, you know, like a lot of the stuff I covered today, the scripts and a lot of those things, those tools are in there.
Yeah, very cool. And guys, for anyone that goes and buys the book, let me know. Shoot me an email at matt@pursuingresults.com. We've got a PDF that we're putting together that we haven't released anywhere yet. It's called Secrets of Master Listing Agents, and it's a lot of those lessons learned. I briefly mentioned the gentleman that hosts the show in San Diego, where they pit some of the top listing agents against each other with real sellers. So he was on the show months and months ago. We took all the content, all the best takeaways that I took away from that episode, all the little key things that I mentioned, like just those things like don't mention anything negative about the condition of the home before you get the listing signed. Some of those key insights that I took away from his experience is in that PDF, guys. So if you go buy Hoss's book, listingbossbook.com, shoot me an email, let me know, matt@pursuingresults.com. Just shoot me an email, let me know that you bought the book, and I'll send you that PDF. It doesn't look pretty. It's not done yet. But you can be the first to get it. So let me know that you got the book, because I want people to go out and get the book, dude. If this was, holy cow, if I would have had, I wish I would have had more like a resource like this when I was in, because that would have made it a lot easier. The interview and stuff like that was awesome, and the materials I was very lucky to stumble across. You know, we talked about Todd Bates back in the day. I don't even know what he's doing or where he's at. Oh yeah, but thank you to him. That was the interview, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Todd passed away, actually, so I'm sorry to break that to you, but yeah.
Yeah,
but he did.
I did not
know. Was a legend in our industry. Great guy.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.
Yeah, very cool.
Right.
So yeah, if I would have had a resource like your book back in the day, I would have been much better off and much further ahead, and a lot less pain in the process of learning how to build those skills. So guys, get the book. For us, just a quick reminder for those of you that are watching and listening, go to getnowbusiness.com. That's the live course that we run behind the scenes on how to get your business going very quickly. I mentioned the different personality types. So if you are someone that so far have not had the best luck doing cold calls, there may be some other issues behind that, but if you're interested in trying out some different things to really build up an army of people around you that'll send you referrals and build a powerful business referral network that will send you a constant stream of referrals, that's what that program is all about. And so you can check that out at getnowbusiness.com. And then I'm just curious, Hoss, what's next on your agenda? I know you're working on the Easy Money book, but that's not going to come out in a while. What's the next big thing for you?
Speaking, man, I'm going to crush some stages next year. That's what I want to do. That's my big thing is speaking. So I'm going to I'm going to be speaking, and I got the Real Estate Wealth Expo tour, probably the same tour that your buddy's at, your partner's at in Salt Lake with Tony Robbins. But the tour with Tony Robbins and Pitbull and Susie Orman. And so I'm a part of that tour, and we're going to be traveling the country. And
that's awesome.
We have a Dallas event and an LA event. I'm going to be in Boston in October speaking up there, and then all over the country next year. I've got my conference recharges next year, and then No Limits Real Estate Success Conference is a workshop that we're going to have. We're going to do 4 times next year around the country. So be on the lookout for that for anybody if it's in your area, or come to it. But it'll be a good full day of training.
Very cool. And if they buy the book and stuff like that, do they get kind of into your world to where they know what's happening?
Absolutely. Right.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we'll get you plugged in. So just go get the book, go get it, and then I'd love to know your feedback. Hear your feedback. Never gets old. So good or bad, I'd love to hear it.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I just wanted to thank you again, all the great questions and comments that we got from people that were watching here on Facebook Live. Make sure that that you're connected with us. Follow me and Greg. I know Greg wasn't on this broadcast, but make sure to follow us both on Facebook. Make sure to connect with Hoss, get into his world, and then for the show, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher, depending on your device. And just want to thank you once again. We will be back on Monday. Greg will be back in the saddle. We're going to rock and roll and take some questions, so make sure to join us for that. And everybody, will see you then.
See you guys.